Today we are talking about truly one of the most underrated growth strategies. This is something that is not talked about enough and literally has the power to double your client income over the next few months. And I can say that as someone who has done that with this strategy and has so many clients who have done the same. What we're going to be talking about today is client retention and actually keeping your clients. So this is increasing the lifetime value of your clients, how much people are spending with you, and how long people are actually staying in your space for. This is something, again, we just don't talk about enough. I feel like for most entrepreneurs, it kind of ends up as a bit of an afterthought, as I probably should reach out to this person, versus actually having a strategy around this. And I want to share with you today what this strategy can actually look like and how we're going to fill this gap from a lot of clients tending to not re-sign, not continue with you, not stay for a while, maybe just do one round inside your program, to actually what it takes to keep people for literally years inside your offers. Now, one of the other reasons why I'm so passionate about this topic specifically is not just because of the income potential and how much we can really grow our income and, switch from working with clients for a few months to actually years, but also just how sustainable this makes your business. This is one of the things that creates a really, truly simple and sustainable business for you, because it means that you don't need to constantly be making new sales. Most entrepreneurs, we will spend our time constantly in marketing and sales. We'll spend so much time and energy thinking, how can I get new leads? How can I get new clients coming in? And actually, this almost doesn't become the primary focus, or it doesn't need to be, at least in every single season of your life when you have this locked down. Because if you can have really solid client retention, you don't constantly need to be signing a new client, because the income is not dropping because people are not leaving your space. And this is so powerful, and I really saw this for myself a couple of summers ago, summer of 2024, when I was pretty sick for a couple of months. I was in and out of hospital appointments, and I was not able to work a huge amount. So I was really not focused on the marketing and sales side of my business. I pulled back fully here. I was working about 10 hours a week for several of those weeks, really just focused on serving my current clients and showing up for them. But I was not marketing, I was not selling in the way that I typically would be. I still did sign a new client because of the sales pathways I'd built, but that's a whole other story for a whole other video. But the point of this is that I didn't need to sign a new client for months. I could go months of that entire summer without signing a new client and my income would not have dropped, because I had such consistency with my client retention. I had, and I still have, clients who have been working with me for literally years, who continue for years inside of my one-to-one program. And that is so powerful, because it meant that I could go through that summer and I could really put myself first. I could really focus on myself. I didn't need to be stressing and worrying and adding an extra worry to my plate of the business and how I was going to be signing new clients and bringing new sales in, because I already had that down. I had a really strong client retention. And through that entire year, I worked out my numbers at the end, and it was 87% client retention. 87% of my clients decided to continue and re-sign with me who were due to re-sign in that year. And hopefully, touch wood, you do not have a season like that where you are, in and out of hospital. But I think this is a perfect analogy for just life things happening, because something life-wise is going to happen, whether it is you being a mom, whether it is a family incident, whatever it is, something probably is going to pop up at some point in the lifetime of your business. And it feels so good to have a really stable business in that time, where it kind of feels like the rock solid foundation underneath you instead of another thing that you need to be worrying about. So that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video, is client retention. What does that actually look like? How do we actually increase this? What are the specific strategies I utilize to really get my client retention rate up to 87%? And how can you do that too? So I want to make this so freaking tangible and strategic for you. So we're going to walk you through a few different questions, and I want you to just be thinking as you're listening to this, or write down on your notes app a few ideas of what comes to mind for each of these questions. So the first thing we want to think about is, where are people dropping off? If you know your client retention rate is not where you want it to be, where specifically are they dropping off? Is it that, for example, they're inside my one-to-one program, but then I pitch to them, do you want to continue? And it's usually a no, and most of my clients won't continue. That's the exact point we want to highlight there. Is it, for example, that I will do intensives with people, but most people won't convert into an intensive into my group program, for example? Where is the gap specifically? And we want to get really clear on this, because it's really vague topic for us to say, increase your client retention and give some vague overall tips that aren't actually going to be helpful for you. But if we can get clear on exactly where people are dropping off, then we can fix that, because we know what the problem actually is. And the point of this is we kind of just want to zoom into the leak. Where are we leaking people, essentially? We want to zoom in here because yes, I can give you new sales pathways and we can work on all of that, and that's really amazing. But if we're constantly leaking clients and we're just losing people after one round, we know we're just needing to constantly flow new people in, and it will be so much more sustainable for us to fix that leak and fill that gap, essentially. It's like pouring water into a sieve, right? You wouldn't say we just need more water in here. You would say, okay, we should probably fill these holes first. So this is what we're aiming to do here. So find that gap. Where is the place where people are dropping off, where they're not re-signing, where they're not continuing? And then second question, I really want you to look at why could this be? I don't want this to be from an emotional place of I'm thinking that I'm not good enough, etc. But really just logistically putting yourself in your ideal client's shoes. Why might it be that they're not continuing with you? Is it that, okay, the offer maybe feels a bit big? Is it that there's not really an incentive for them to re-sign? Is it that I'm pitching this offer, but I'm not even really excited about it, so they're probably not really excited about it either? Is there anything that you can immediately notice? Because sometimes it is really obvious what we need to fill and what we need to shift. We just don't know how to shift that thing. Now that you've kind of got your initial assessment, essentially, of what you see going on as the person who is really in this and has actively seen all these situations and seen these scenarios, I want to share with you, from my expertise, what have I really noticed go on when I've had clients come to me and client retention is a really problem that we're wanting to fix. What do I typically notice, and what typically tends to be the problem at each of these places we're losing people? So firstly, for example, if you were looking at the pathway from an intensive to a group / mastermind / one-to-one, i.e. we've had one single session with you and we're wanting to upsell them to having more of a continuous working with you relationship. We're wanting it to be 6 month, 3 month, whatever it is program after they've had one single session. The biggest gap which I notice here of why people don't actually continue inside of this program and why they won't jump into that program that you're pitching them is often that we actually made the jump too big. We're going from, okay, you've had a single session with me for $200 and now do you want to pay $10K to work with me one-to-one? And some people absolutely will say yes to that. Some people will say that sounds brilliant, but a big reason why we're sometimes not retaining people is we're just making a really big jump for them and it feels like a really big decision. It's not that they don't love working with you. It's not that they didn't get a lot of value out of this intensive. It's just that the $10K feels really big after the $200. So what I would try out here if I was you is I would introduce something which feels like a bit of a middle ground. So for example, it could be jumping from an intensive with you to we're going to do 1 month together and really just trial out something which feels like a smaller step down, essentially. This can even be, for example, we're just going to shorten the length of the container and the commitment they're initially making. So it could be from your intensive, instead of going to your 6 month one-to-one, we're going to pitch them 3 months inside one-to-one. And it just feels like a smaller step. It feels like an easier yes, because what we're wanting to do here is essentially, I'll always say sales is kind of like a staircase and we're getting someone to move up the staircase. And when sales feels really seamless and feels like a heck yes at every stage, someone's gone up the staircase, but it's been such tiny steps each step essentially that it just feels really easy. It feels really natural. Every single step feels like, well, of course I'd book that intensive. Of course I want to fix this problem. Of course I'm going to jump into the 1 month of working with you. That sounds amazing. The 1 month was so good. Of course I'm going to jump into your 6 month program. It feels like a really natural step up. So what we want to do is sometimes we've accidentally just had a bit of a high step essentially. It's a bit of a leap. We know we kind of need a ladder to get up this step. What we're wanting is just to lower that step down, just to make it feel a little bit more manageable for your client to actually be taking that next step. So that's what I would be trying out if I was you. If you're looking at the pathway from intensive into your longer term commitment, and this is where we're missing the client retention, is how can we lower that barrier to entry? How can we make it a really easy yes by just having something which feels a little bit of a lower level for them? Now, the second example I want to give is probably where a lot of you are going to be stuck. And this is where I notice a lot of my clients getting stuck as well. This is where we are asking them to essentially continue inside the same program. So for example, a client has been with you in one-to-one for 6 months and we pitch them, hey, do you want to re-sign for another 6 months? Or they've been inside the mastermind or your group program for 1 round and we pitch them on joining for the 2nd round when we're going to be doing this program again. This is where a lot of people will get stuck and make it so that, a lot of clients will stay with us for 1 round or 6 months of one-to-one, but they don't actually stay longer term. And this is a thing we really want to fix because this is the biggest client retention gap. Yes, going from, intensive to one-to-one, that's great if we can get that down. And also if we can get this piece down and you can have clients who stay in your higher level programs 4 months, 4 years, this is absolutely huge for you. Now, there's obviously the very obvious piece of just provide a good service. But I think it really does go deeper than that a lot of the time. And a lot of the reasons why someone doesn't decide to continue inside your program isn't due to I didn't get value, isn't due to I didn't find this helpful, I'm not enjoying this support and I'm not finding this valuable. It's often not that, it's something else. And the biggest mistake I see solopreneurs making here is we're essentially just pitching them more of the same. We are saying, hey, I've had a great 6 months inside one-to-one with you, for example. Do you want to continue inside one-to-one with me? And we're basically just saying, hey, do you want to do that all over again? Which is great because, they had a good experience. They had a really good time. They got a lot of value. But that client is in a different place now than when they started that program. They have grown. They have moved their business forward. They've moved their life forward. They've seen progress in the last 6 months or inside that first round of that program with you. We need to actually be thinking about what is going to be different when they continue with us. This is the piece you really want to lean into because this is what keeps people for years. You're able to take them on an actual client journey, and it's not just do you want to do more of the same and feeling like we're almost just repeating the same thing, because clients naturally, when they have progressed, when they have seen that growth, they're looking and thinking, okay, great, what's next? What do I do next? What's the next goal we're aiming towards? And if you can feel that, if you can give them that answer by staying with you and doing another round in your program, working with you for another 6 months, if you can do that through that experience, they're going to stay with you because they already had a great experience. They've already got this relationship built with you. It's easier to stay, but the reason why a lot of people won't stay is because it feels like we're going to get better results by jumping to this next level program, and it feels like this is going to be a repeat essentially and just playback, essentially hit playback on the 6 months which we've had already. It feels like we're just going to be doing the same, and they know they don't need the same. They're at a different level and they have different goals. So can we actually speak to that? What I would always do is when you're then pitching that client and saying, hey, I'd love to continue inside one-to-one with you, would you love to sign on for another 6 months? Share with them what this 6 months is going to look like. What are we going to focus on? What are we going to do differently? What goals are we working towards? How is this going to be different? And even inside, for example, something like a group program where there's maybe a bit more structure, there's a theme, there's specific modules, there's aspects we work through. Okay, but how is this going to apply to them now? Not them of 6 months ago when they first signed up for this program, but them now, with the goals that they have, with the progress that they've made, with the stage they're at right now. How is this going to help them move even further forward when they go through these modules again, for example, or when they go through, month 3's theme over again? How is this going to be different this time? How is this going to add extra value past just doing what they've already done? So that's what I see as really the biggest leak areas for people, and that's what I would really be first looking at to plug those gaps for you. Now, I also recorded a private podcast episode on my client retention strategy, exactly what I do and exactly how I've hit 87% client retention with my one-to-one program. You can get that completely for free at the link in the description. Sign up and you'll get the link to add this to your podcast app so you can listen to it on the go. It is episode 5 when we're talking about the client retention, and it is a full episode breaking down the strategic pieces of how do we actually increase lifetime value, how do we actually re-sign clients, what does that look like, and giving you a bit of a strategy as well for how you can start doing this beyond it being an afterthought for you in your business. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope this has been something to really chew on and really think about with increasing your sales over the next few months, and something to really focus on that isn't just create a new sales pathway, launch a new thing, something which is really tangible and actually sets you up for a really sustainable business in the future as well. So I'm very excited to hear your takeaways. Make sure again you go and sign up for the private podcast so you can get that episode on client retention and get all of the strategic pieces there, and I'll see you in the next one.